How many of you remember this and love America because of this?
My poor little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
I still have that dream. And notice that's from 1963. You hear the applause there. In 1963, because Martin Luther King said something very, very simple, very, very true. And one of the things that I love about the United States of America, it's meritocracy. I want to live in a world where we judge people by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. Question of the day for you today, and we're going to get into this because of what's happening in Stanley, North Dakota. Are you born a racist, or do you learn to be a racist? Are you born a racist, or do you learn to become a racist? I want to know your point of view on this. And it's very important because of what we're doing to our young kids and creating more and more division in our nation. The number to call into the show, 701 271 1100, 701 271 1100. It's really shocking when you think that was back in 1963. MLK is at the U.S. Capitol and just makes that simple statement to a huge, huge applause line, because you and I both know in our heart of hearts, deep down in our guts, that's the way it should be. That is a more perfect union. So I bring all this up because, again, I cannot thank you, our audience, enough. You people that tune in every day, you people that care about our kids, the future of this nation, reaching out to me again and sharing with me what's happening here in Stanley, North Dakota. Let me share with you something that came out. John, can you grab that call, please? Let me share with you something that came out. Again, number to call into the show, 701 271 1100. Again, 701 271 1100. September 16th, school counseling newsletter in Stanley, North Dakota. Are you born a racist, or do you learn to become a racist? This is for K through sixth graders, okay? So you're talking kindergartners. Minds are malleable. Coming up next week, September 16th, coming up next week. In the next few weeks, our classroom lessons will focus on diversity and racism. We will learn about these two definitions and how important our differences are. Students will learn age-appropriate definitions, and everyone will have a chance to share what makes them different and appreciate their classmates' difference as well, which is fine. If you and I want to celebrate the uniqueness of young people and the God-given gifts that each one of us have been given and how we can utilize those to maximize our greatest purpose in life, awesome. I'm all for that. We don't need to be planting the word racism in the kindergartners. We don't need to be planting the word racism into the minds of kindergartens, because all it does is create more and more division. I don't know about you, but I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted from the division in this nation that's dubbed itself the United States of America. And whatever you and I have to do to become united, whether that's a restoration of righteousness in our nation, I'm all for it. Which I think is actually a pretty good idea. How do you and I restore more righteousness in our nation? Ruthie, we are going to get to that. I do want to get to your phone calls as well. Number to call in, please share your point of view, 701 271 1100. Carrie's on line one. Carrie, welcome to the show. What's your point of view?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious. It is interesting about that because my wife and I raised our kids overseas. We worked with an international school, and from the time they were 4 and 5 on up to graduating from high school, and as they were growing up, they didn't see color. And so it goes to show that it's something that's taught, not inborn.
Carrie, great phone call. I really, really appreciate that. And he's exactly right. I mean, look, we're all born as these sort of bundles of love. Like, that's what you love when you see little babies. They're just happy. You're born as this bundle of love. You're not born a racist or to see skin color. So the fact that we are now indoctrinating, again, some of you laugh when I talk about, oh, you know what? You just send these kids to like these indoctrination camps when you go into some of these schools. Now, not all of them, but I'm going to say some of them. And keep in mind, we're talking about Stanley, North Dakota. This isn't San Francisco. This is Stanley, North Dakota. So to give you an idea of what I'm talking about specifically, so there's these different books they're going to be reading. I'm going to talk about some of the activities in a moment to tell you specifically about what's going to take place. But again, when you think about the purpose of a school, what's the purpose of the school? What's the purpose of our education system? Many people would suggest it's to help our young people understand, get better at reading, writing, and arithmetic, the 3 R's. I've now added an R. I said, you know what, rather than the 3 R's, I think we should now call it, hey, when you go to school, we're going to talk about the 4 R's: reading, writing, arithmetic, and righteousness. I've told you this now many times on the show. It happened to me again last night. I was driving home from the show. I just wanted to chill out, just wanted to listen to some good music. Turned on, because I like R&B and hip hop. Turned on one of the stations. I'm like, I can listen to about 10 seconds of this. It's so unrighteous. I can't stand it. And I don't mean to sound like that guy, but it's just like, what's wrong with having a little bit of righteousness back in our lives? And Ruthie here brings up a phenomenal point. Somebody else sent this to me, so I'm going to share something with you. Ruthie says this: when you think about the purpose of our schools, Ruthie says, hey, the latest data for Stanley, straight from the DPI website. This is unbelievable. Think about this. For the next few weeks, they are going to be talking about diversity and racism. What's the purpose of school? Reading, writing, arithmetic, and I'm going to say righteousness as well. Right now in Stanley, North Dakota, they're going to talk about diversity and racism to K through 6th graders. And right now, and according to the DPI website, Department of Public Instruction in North Dakota, for the math in Stanley, 10% are proficient. There are zero advanced students in English. That is our native language, see? Hablan español en Stanley ahora? No sé, porque no vivo en Stanley, pero I mean, what is going on? English proficiency, 20%. 8% are advanced. Ay, caramba. Ay, Dios mío. I mean, this is just, what? Ruthie, this is unbelievable. Proficiency means a student scored 67% in English and 76% in math. That's proficiency these days. Ruthie, great stat. Thank you. So now let me share with you what one of the activities as you go through these books. Oh, I'm showing this. I forgot to say this. So remember the piece where I was sharing with you about how these are indoctrination camps, right? And some of you just chuckle like, oh, Berg, what are you talking about? So the 3rd grade book that they're going to have, it's called Just Ask. And it's all about acceptance and respect and support and, you know, all these really nice, great words. Now, keep in mind, the whole premise of this thing is about kindness. They want to teach kindness, okay? The name of the book is Just Ask. Now, if we're going to play this down the line, it's not going to be an indoctrination nation. It's not going to be an indoctrination camp. You would presume you're going to have books that are kind of straight up authors. At least that's what I would presume. Do you presume the same thing? Guess who the author is of the 3rd grade book, Just Ask? The author of Just Ask, the book used for 3rd graders, the one and only, can I get a drum roll, please? Sonia Sotomayor. Yes, a Supreme Court justice who is uber liberal, appointed by President Barack Hussein Obama, is the author of the book that's going to be used in Stanley, North Dakota for 3rd graders. But hey, 10% of our kids are proficient in math. Let's get to the phone, 701-271-1100, 701-271-1100. Eric, welcome to the show. What's your point of view?
Hey, Chris, I want to thank you for your show, by the way. You put out a lot of good stuff.
Appreciate that very much.
I don't know if this is possible, but I would enjoy to see it as a Moorhead resident. We have 11 people running for the Moorhead School Board. And again, I don't know if there's enough time, but I would love to have you or Scott or somebody from the flag have a debate. Now, I know that WDAY Midday has been interviewing some of the Moorhead school members, but when you ask them a question about, say, CRT, for example, it's just kind of like, well, I haven't seen it. and it's very dismissed, like it doesn't really exist. But in a platform of a debate with someone such as yourself asking direct questions, then they're forced amongst themselves to actually say, this is what I don't want to see, or I'm for this, or I'm for that, instead of, well, I just haven't come across it. And God, we know it's being taught. So anyway, it's just,
Eric,
it would be a great format, and I would love to hear a debate like that if it's at all possible.
thank you, sir. I really appreciate the phone call. Appreciate the compliments as well, very, very much. And it brings up a really interesting point, because I was going to touch on this. Remember this. What is it? The 5th of November. We're supposed to be teaching CRT in North Dakota schools. They're doing it in Grand Forks. Jim Casper, I texted him this. He's like, Chris, it's rampant everywhere in North Dakota. And I'm curious if you went to Kirsten Baszler or any superintendent or even teachers, counselors. Hey, it says here that in the next few weeks you're going to be talking about diversity and racism. Would that be considered CRT? They'd probably say no. No, that's not CRT. Let's get to the phones here again. 701-271-1100. Thank you so much for the calling in. Thank you for the great input on this topic. It's again, Stanley, North Dakota. This is happening. We actually have a parent coming up in the next segment here that was at the school board meeting. He's going to share his point of view on this. But phone lines, 701-271-1100. Andrew, welcome to the show. What's your point of view?
Hi, Chris. Glad to be on with you. And I think I'm going to use the 4 R's in the conversation very, very, very soon. It's a great point. I'm going to steal that from you.
Thank you.
I can have your.
I only charge licensing fees, so you're good.
No, it's well said, well articulated, and well thought about. So, but I just want to point out that we all know that when we bring our kids to daycare and you drop them off, and there is a cornucopia of colors represented on the playground, it doesn't matter. Kids play with whoever. It does not matter. Racism is taught. Racism is shown, and it has to be pushed in a way that was the very first thing that showed up in the Garden of Eden. If you remember, God created us perfectly, and it wasn't until the knowledge of good and evil, right? Because we ate from not the tree of good and evil. We ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So as soon as we know the difference, that's what pollutes and causes sin. So the minute you point out Black Lives Matter in a sign with the word matter, it's implicit in the fact that not only is it separate from all the other colors, but it's exalted above the other colors, because Black Lives Matter. Those 3 words together on a sign literally is implicit and complicit with the fact that it's racist. Because anytime you separate one from the other, it's not how God sees things. And as soon as you see things the way God does not see them, you lose every time.
Andrew, thanks for the call. We're coming up here, so stay with us. A parent from